Good evening and thank you for being with us. A fire ban is now in effect for the city of Thunder Bay. It comes in response to an unusually busy grass fire season. So as of noon today, no outdoor burning is allowed within city limits. The fire ban coincides with the restricted fire zone declared by the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry for the lower half of northwestern Ontario. Thunder Bay fire resources have been stretched thin as crews have, on some days, been forced to respond to multiple grass or brush fires. Chief John Hay says this grass fire season has been quite a bit busier than over the last few years.
The MNR is also experiencing the same conditions in the forest, and they've put on a restricted fire zone. And as usual, we follow step with them. We're just trying to reduce the number of sources of ignition that could be possible for the fires. We've had some pretty big grass fires that have encroached on some properties, and as much as we can, we want to be able to mitigate that.
Hay says the fire service will follow the ministry's lead in deciding when to lift the ban. Until that time, it is illegal to light a fire, and all outdoor burning permits are suspended. Outdoor barbecues, though, can still be used on private property. Neighboring municipalities, including Shunya and Nebing, have also instituted a fire ban. Thunder Bay fire investigators are now saying that careless smoking is likely the cause of a major house fire this past weekend on the city's south side. Fire crews were called to the 200 block of South Mark Street at about 11:15 Saturday morning. Investigators say the fire appears to have started underneath the front deck of a 2.5-story structure and grew quickly. The smoke alarms went off and 5 residents escaped. 2 women and a child living on the top floor had to run through the flames at the front door because there was no rear fire escape. Unfortunately, they left the door open during the panic, and the fire quickly spread to the interior of the residence. Total damage was extensive. Fire investigators say they believe a carelessly discarded cigarette underneath the front porch was the cause of the outbreak. The suspect in yesterday's Amber Alert has been arrested. OPP say the 47-year-old Thunder Bay woman has now been charged with abduction in contravention of a court order, break-and-enter, and assault. Meanwhile, many area residents are wondering why they didn't receive a notification on their cell phones or other devices. The wireless public alert system was launched back in April for public emergencies. Many users, though, didn't receive a notification yesterday or the test alert issued last week. TBayTel spokesperson Katie Crow says both incidents are being evaluated as the company works with engineers to correct the issue. She says a phone's operating software may have been a factor in the failure to receive notifications on your individual device.
What we don't know is if there is network or software issues that block the distribution at some point. But what we do know is that there are, it's necessary for the device to be LTE compatible. It's necessary for the device to be connected to an LTE network. So we do know that some users across the province who say they did not get the alert, the issue is actually with their device. So the user has to ensure that they're connected to an LTE network and that their operating software on their device is the most current.
Crow says there is no timetable as to when they'll find a resolution, but TBayTel hopes to solve the problem as soon as possible. An elderly man from Geraldton is dead following a 2-vehicle crash just east of Thunder Bay yesterday. OPP say an SUV and a pickup truck collided at the corner of Highway 1117 and Spruce River Road at around 4 o'clock. The driver of the SUV, 88-year-old Jean-Luc Baudouin, was rushed to hospital by paramedics but was later pronounced dead. The driver of the pickup, a 53-year-old from Nipigon, was sent to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The OPP continues to investigate. Thunder Bay City Council has voted to ratify a new taxi bylaw, and the chair of the city's taxi bylaw committee believes it won't be long before ride-sharing companies like Uber start arriving here in Thunder Bay. Councillor Brian McKinnon says ride-sharing services have begun to express interest in our community. He admits a few slight changes might be needed to the bylaw before Uber and Lyft and others arrive, but McKinnon notes the city will look at the new regulations over the next year or so and may be open to easing some of those restrictions over that time.
The age of the vehicle is going to be challenged again. We've raised it from 7 years to 10 years, which was, I think, a good move. You know, I know lots of people who own 7, 8, 9-year-old cars, and they're running fine. So I think that's going to be looked at. The safety of the vehicle, we are asking that it be done every 6 months. Well, maybe it'll have to go to a year. Those are things that we've put on the table and said, yeah, those are things that maybe in 6 months or 8 months we're going to have to look at pretty seriously and make some, potential changes.
The new bylaw also allows existing Thunder Bay cab companies to set their own rates rather than have prices imposed upon them. Representatives from the taxi industry were not available for comment today on the change. Meanwhile, council has decided to crack down on drivers who needlessly idle their vehicles. Last night, councillors approved a 2-minute idling restriction. That's down from the 5 minutes of continuous idling time that was previously allowed. There are temperature exemptions. The restrictions won't be enforced when the temperature drops below the freezing mark or rises above 27 degrees Celsius. Some on council expressed skepticism that the city will be able to enforce the bylaw at all. Licensing and Enforcement Manager James Cody admits it will be tough. He says the city will respond to complaints from the community, much like how it enforces other bylaws. The 2-minute restriction was proposed by Councillor Rebecca Johnson after administration initially recommended a 1-minute idling limit.
And I don't think that's palatable, to be quite honest with you, and I don't even know how we would enforce it. I don't even know how we're going to enforce 2. But at the same point in time, I feel very strongly that that is just a huge jump down.
How is that enforcement going to look? Are you going to expect neighbors to video and time? Are you going to expect logs to be taken?
We would most likely need a witness and some evidence in terms of a log, similar to how we do our noise complaints now. So the idling method of enforcement would be similar to how we do our noise enforcement.
There was some debate as to what exactly constitutes idling. In a lighter moment, council actually looked up the Wikipedia definition, as the term idling wasn't clearly defined in the city's existing bylaw. Cody insists the enforcement won't be unreasonable, such as targeting motorists in drive-thrus or at red lights. He says this is more about dissuading people from running their vehicle at home or at work to ensure it's at the optimal temperature before getting in. The chair of Hydro One says he realizes his company has become a lightning rod for criticism during the Ontario election campaign. Several protesters were on hand today as the utility held a board meeting in Toronto. Also on hand, Progressive Conservative leader Doug Ford, who continued his attack on the compensation being paid to top Hydro One officials. Austin Delaney reports.
PC leader Doug Ford made a quick campaign stop outside the Hydro One board meeting. It comes as we learn the board approved itself big raises. The board chair, $70,000 a year wage hike, bringing his compensation to $330,000. Board members voted themselves a $25,000 raise to $185,000.
Who does that? Who does that? This is a waste of taxpayers' money. This is the reason the board's going, the CEO is going. That's unacceptable.
Ford was met by a small group of placard-chanting supporters, many of them shielding their faces from our camera. And we were hard-pressed to learn where they came from and why. Let me talk to you for a second. Right here. I'll talk to you. I'm good. Let me talk to you.
I don't speak English. No English here.
No thanks.
No thanks. Yeah.
So you come here to protest, but you don't want to talk?
No thanks.
What brings you here today?
I'm good, thanks.
Yeah?
Yeah, sorry. My throat hurts.
The campaign has used paid actors to rally Ford. One demonstrator today said he was not being paid. Hydro One CEO Mayo Schmidt is paid $6.2 million in compensation and stands to take home nearly $11 million if Ford is elected and he is fired.
How do you feel about being Mr. Ford's target?
You know, I don't focus on the politics. My job and responsibilities are to deliver for shareholders and our customer.
Kathleen Wynne says the province as a shareholder has raised its concerns.
When we determined that this was the compensation package, we made it very clear that we thought it was unacceptable.
Wynne says that's why there is a review.
When Mr. Ford talks about Hydro One, he talks about getting rid of Kathleen Wynne's cronies, as he calls them. But we know for sure that all Mr. Ford's going to do is put his own cronies in place. And then they're going to actually give themselves a $25,000 increase.
The NDP promises to buy back Hydro One.
Austin Delaney, CTV News, Toronto.
Still with the provincial election, a campaign manager for an area PC candidate is off the job following some controversial posts on social media. The Ontario Liberal Party revealed the postings about Muslims allegedly made by longtime Conservative organizer Anne Ayotte. She used to work for Greg Rickford when he was a federal minister and was now working for Kiiwetinoong PC candidate Clifford Bull. Bull issued a statement today saying there is no place for disrespectful or hateful comments in our party, and says he immediately parted ways with Ayotte. Longtime Cabinet Minister Michael Gravel is seeking his 7th consecutive term at Queen's Park. He's been an MPP for the past 23 years, and he's not planning to give up his riding of Thunder Bay Superior North anytime soon. Carmen Wong has more in this candidate profile.
The Thunder Bay-born politician was first elected to the Ontario Legislature in 1995, representing the riding of Port Arthur. He has since been re-elected in 1999, 2003, 2007, 2011, and 2015. Gravel says he hopes voters will support him once again. He has laid out an ambitious plan for the next 4 years. He says his vision is to build on what he has done over the years, such as the 4-laning between Thunder Bay and Nipigon.
Started it really in 2010. Now, 8 years later, we've got more than half of that 4-laning complete, and we're going to get that finished. And I want to be back at Queen's Park to make sure that job gets done.
And he wants to take the 4-laning project one step further by expanding it from the Manitoba border to the Quebec border. Also on the Liberal priority list include building an all-season access road to the Ring of Fire, building on the mining sector, and implementing a gas price watchdog commissioner. Gravel serves as the Minister of Northern Development and Mines, and he says there are opportunities and also difficulties, but he's ready to tackle them.
I want to be able to be there to help move the mining sector forward. So we're pretty excited about the opportunities that are there. There's no shortage of challenges. I want to take those challenges on, straight on. As I said, I feel very passionately about this job.
In the past few years, Gravel has battled with depression and fought cancer. He says his dedication to his riding stems from his passion for helping others.
There's nothing more gratifying than public service. To be able to help, sometimes it's the stuff that, quite frankly, nobody knows about. We have a constituency office where we help thousands upon thousands of people, and while we're not always successful, we work hard to make sure that people are well looked after, and particularly when they're having a challenging time working through the bureaucracy.
Carmen Wong, TVT News.
Tomorrow, we will profile Progressive Conservative candidate Derek Parks. Dalico Anishinaabe Family Care and the Fort William First Nation have received initial approval for a new long-term care facility for Indigenous seniors, and they are now moving to the next phase of development. The 96-bed seniors' home was recently approved for development by the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care. The next phase will include reviewing the facility's location on the Fort William First Nation. Executive Director Darcia Borg says the facility will provide culturally safe services for seniors from communities served by Dalico.
What will be available will be culturally safe care. And what that means is that, our elders and people that will be in the long-term care home will have access to, services that, the cultural services that they desire, and also things as simple as, the food that they're provided.
We currently don't have these types of services within the city of Thunder Bay and within the district of Thunder Bay. And more specifically, Indigenous long-term care. We don't have that. We don't have the culturally safe services for our seniors, our aging population.
There is no estimated price tag yet. The long-term care facility will take about 3 to 4 years to design and build.
Well, they're really